Jochen here. Your first two games, Houston Dynamo and Real Salt Lake, top teams, tough start. But I know you thrive on these challenges. Play with intensity, connect with defense, and show them what New York Red Bulls are all about.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 55 of Red Bull KloppBot here on Sean Does FM. I hope you're doing well and coming up today. Going to play our first couple of games in charge of the New York Red Bulls. We take on the two best teams over in the Western Conference. First up, the Houston Dynamo before Real Salt Lake, but thankfully both those games are at home. But yesterday we made the move from Leipzig here to the MLS. Had a quick look at our squad and also the KloppBot's tactic they did select for us to go with here at the New York Red Bulls. So if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Also tried to sign a player and I couldn't figure it out, so it's a great start to life here in the MLS. We'll try and sort it off the back of today's episode because to be fair, still a month before we can sign players from overseas anyway until that transfer window does open. So to be fair, still got a bit of time to sort that one out before we try and reshape the squad going into the second half here of this MLS season. As you can see, this squad does need a bit of work. They're 14 for 15 in the Eastern Conference, albeit only 4 points off that final qualifying spot for the playoffs. So to be fair, if we get them in form for the right time this season, we might still be okay here, but not a great start, especially because the first two teams that we take on, you can see them there at the top of the Western Conference, the Houston Dynamo, who have a few games in hand on Real Salt Lake, but we're not in too good a shape going into our first couple of games in charge because there's some international football being played and also we've got some injuries. So first up, we are missing our starting right winger in Adalberto Carrasquilla for this first game. In today's episode, he's away with the Panamanian international team, so it does mean he'll miss this first game. Should hopefully be back though for that game against Real Salt Lake. Quite timely for him too, considering that the Houston Dynamo are his former clubs. Less awkwardness there for him, albeit these days he's actually spent longer at the New York Red Bulls. And also, we're missing some players with injury. First up, Lewis Morgan currently on the disabled list. I'm pretty sure I figured out once he's not injured, he goes back to being registered, so he should be okay there. He's only a couple of days away from returning as the Scotsman, so he should be okay for that second game as well. He could be quite handy being our first choice left winger. More concerningly though, we are missing Nathan for a fair while. He's our only out-and-out right back here at the club, the Brazilian, and he has got a broken wrist which is going to keep him out for 4 to 6 weeks. That's definitely an area we need to improve once that transfer window does open up for international players, or if we can find someone to trade for in the MLS, but certainly that is an issue. It does mean that currently we are going to try Farfan at right back. Now, we did discover during the course of today's episode, even though it says he's a left back, he can do a job at right back, and to be fair, does look a little bit better than someone like Justin Glards. We're going to try him there at right back for this little period while Nathan is injured before we can actually sign someone. Hopefully, he'll do a decent job, seeing as we do have quite a good player at left back in Noah. Alan Callum Styles can kind of do a job there, but certainly as a player I want to get rid of. Looks like a proper waste there of an international spot with that current ability and potential, but he can do a job as a backup left back if we really need him to, and it does mean we can still keep a centre back on the bench with Cole Turner as well. So I think that's the best option while that injury to Nathan is going on. And also, of course, we've got some changes at right wing and left wing for this first game of today's episode, with us missing both Carrasquilla and Morgan. So it does mean that Halsawi will start on the right-hand side, an okay player, but certainly would not like to be using him too much. And Randall Leal will start at left wing, a little bit better at Costa Rican international, but again, you probably want someone a bit better as your backup, even in a competition like the MLS. So certainly not the nicest game for us here first up at the New York Red Bulls. We're missing a few key players, and also we take on one of the better teams in the Western Conference. Go over and have a look at how the Houston Dynamo do look in this save, managed by a South African who, lo and behold, does like a 4-2-3-1, just like every manager it seems. The recent form actually not that great though. Lost their last couple of games to DC United, who are second in our conference, and Austin FC, who are up there in fourth in the West. So to be fair, their form is starting to go downwards there at the Houston Dynamo, but the captain is Mauricio Pineda, who's got 1.5-star reputation. Looks like a pretty solid midfielder. Unfortunately, no star ratings for some of these players, seeing as we've only been here for a couple of days. Our scouts Still not too sure about some of these players here in the MLS, but he's their captain, who looks fairly well-rounded there in midfield/central defence. Their vice-captain, that's their goalkeeper, and Angel Zamudio, who is Peruvian, only 1-star reputation, an international player, albeit probably won't be playing this game. He's injured out for 5 to 10 days, so we'll skip over him. But their key player, Luca Langoni from Argentina, 27 years old, with 2-star reputation indeed. He actually looks like a proper good player, formerly of Boca Juniors and the New England Revolution. Certainly not the level that we had back at Leipzig, but a couple there of yellow attributes, especially physically, which does make him quite good there for the MLS. So it's going to be a bit of a tough test for us here during the course of today's episode with these first 2 games that we have got. But hopefully the KloppBot's 4-3-3 gegenpress instead of a 4-2-3-1 here is going to work at the New York Red Bulls, going with a positive mentality. There are the in-position instructions if you're wondering what he's told us to click on there. Interestingly, we are going to be more expressive from the start and also run at defence in transition. All that stuff makes sense, but we are distributing quickly from the very get-go. And out of position, we are trapping inside. So a few different things here is going to try out in the MLS, but hopefully can do a decent job here with this Red Bulls team. To be fair, if you look at the season preview in the MLS, they're certainly doing a lot worse than they're supposed to. They're down about 26th on the Supporters' Shield. They're supposed to be around the 12th best team in the competition, and they do have one of the better players in the entire competition. That would be Yilmaz Vink, the player that we loaned back to the New York Red Bulls back at Leipzig. So hopefully he'll do a good job for us here for the remainder of this season before he does go back to Leipzig, expecting big things there out of the young centre-back in Yilmaz Vink, but hopefully can get off here to a half-decent starter, maybe take a point off the Houston Dynamo. And here are the team sheets for our first game in charge here in the MLS. We're in the red apparently. A couple of changes, Farfan at right back, and both our wingers, Halsawi and Leal, they will start this game instead of the usual first choices. And Carrasquet and Morgan there are the Houston Dynamo. They are going with that 4-2-3-1, so it's the meta shape here in FM this year. We'll see how we get on against the second best team in the Western Conference. And being on the 25-minute mark, eventually get the first proper highlight of this game. There wasn't an early one where we were on the attack, but unfortunately Oliveira, he hit the post when he was offside, so I didn't think that was anything that was worth showing you guys. But so far in this game, actually, have been the team on the front foot. So fingers crossed actually get to see that here in this first proper highlight of this game. As I said earlier, we're in the red. Houston in the black, but Rainier there plays that one forward to Oliveira, who this time will put it in the back of net past Woods, another goalkeeper for them who's carrying an injury, albeit I think this one might get ruled out for offside indeed. Just a straight offside there again was Oliveira. So a couple of chances for him early. Unfortunately, he's been offside from both that time. A lot closer than the chance that he hit the post from, but unfortunately, no pace so far for our dominant. You can see the stats there briefly, 6 shots to 1, but just not quite put the ball in the back of the net just yet when it counts with the offsides that we have had. But a few minutes later on the attack again, looking for Oliveira, who this time goes down, and it looks like a pretty clear-cut penalty. Now, to be fair, I don't think I've sorted out my penalty takers. Hopefully the game gives us someone good for this first spot kick. Fingers crossed we have some decent options. It's going to be De La Cruz, one of our designated players, so fingers crossed. He is quite good, sends Woods the wrong way. Let's just actually check what he looks like as a penalty taker. He's got 12, so I suppose that's decent for that in the MLS, but thankfully on the front foot early, and we get a goal, albeit from the penalty spot, to go 1-0 in front. And we're just making our way into the last couple of minutes of the first half. Just those couple of highlights you did see there, shy of the half-hour mark, an offside goal backed up by a penalty, which thankfully De La Cruz did put away. But so far, fair to say that we've definitely been the team here on the front foot, which is a little bit surprising given how far down the Eastern Conference we are and how high these guys are in the West. But so far, this is going well, so I don't think any changes needed going into the second half with this 1-0 lead. And 10 minutes into the second half, get an early corner here, which we flick on. Looking there, it looked like for Rainier inside the box. Goes back out there to Halsawi, but unfortunately, that one comes off the underside of the crossbar, and the rebound Woods can get us. Another good chance for us there to kick off the second half. Definitely on the front foot for the most part of this game, at least in terms of all the highlights that we are seeing now. De La Cruz with a free kick, and that one gets tipped onto the woodwork, and we hit it over for a goal kick. But a good start for us here in the second half. Just haven't quite grabbed that cushion goal that we would like. Now, Noah Allen going quite well for us at left back, but has dropped down to a red heart, so it's going to be a shuffle up for us here at the back. We're going to have to put here Farfan at left back, Glove back out to right back, as he is the only other player who can do a decent job there in our team currently, and Cole Turner can come off the bench. There'll be our first sub here with 25 minutes left. Still 1-0 in front. In fact, right off the back of that, there is a goal kick to the Houston Dynamo, which thankfully we do win. And find Sawi there in a bit of space down our right-hand side, pulls that one back there for Glad, who takes on a shot deflected. It falls for Leal, and unfortunately, that one it looked like came off the woodwork. So we're pushing here for the second goal. Just can't quite find it off the back of that chance he had. Now Leal drops down to a red heart. It looks like here that we've got two players who can do a job at left wing. I think that Berchamus might have been the best of them. We're a bit light at the moment at right wing, missing Karaskia on international dues. So Berchamus can come on there for Leal with our second sub. Still looking for that cushion goal, only 1-0 in front. And we're just made our way into the last 15 minutes of this game, so it's probably a good time for us here to make our last couple of subs, with Lanier going down to a red heart, one of our designated players, but Patricio Jimenez, actually our second choice advanced playmaker. He can come on. That's different to what we had listed yesterday with, I think, Robinson listed there. Indeed, it is actually Jimenez who is second best, but Robinson a lot more potential. Also, we'll take off Olvera for Plitigen. That's an international player who's a backup, so he's probably someone I wouldn't mind trading away to actually get a half-decent first-choice striker in to replace him, but he'll come on up front. And also Styles can come on for Farfan, who did struggle at right back, didn't really improve his rating when he moved to left back. But thankfully, while I've been explaining all those subs, not much has been happening in the last 15 minutes. And we actually pick up a 1-0 win in our first game in charge here at the New York Red Bulls. That's very unexpected with the difference in table standings. Maybe that Western Conference just isn't that strong compared to the East, but that's a great start, and certainly, stats-wise, we did deserve that win. It would be nice if we did grab a cushion goal at some stage, but apart from Farfan, most players out there did a decent job. Our wingers and striker, you'd also say, were not quite at their best, but thankfully got the job done, even though it did take a penalty for us to pick up that win. So a little bit concerning that we couldn't score there from open play, but a good start, and that sees us for now move within 1 point of the playoffs. So a bit of a surprising win for us there in our first game with the New York Red Bulls. Unfortunately, didn't move quite as far up the Eastern Conference there as I was hoping, because once other teams did play, we actually dropped all the way back down to 13th, annoyingly, just one spot below our crosstown rivals in New York City. So currently still the second best team in New York. Fingers crossed we can sort that out during the course of the remainder of this season. But before we play Real Salt Lake in the second game in today's episode, they're the top team in the Western Conference. So again, this might be a tough one, albeit if we can take a win off Houston, we might have a sneaky chance here of picking up another win against one of the top teams there in the West. But there has been a little bit of trade and transfer activity that has been going on. We've actually made a sale, which is a bit interesting here at the New York Red Bulls. Just go over here to transfer history, a few other tabs that you can see there now that we are in the MLS. But we have actually sold a player, our fourth choice striker, in Roll Mitchell. He has actually gone to Miami FC, but of course, they're a team who are in the USL Championship, so it does mean their transfer system is a bit more different to the MLS one involving trades and all that. We've sold him for £58,000. He just wasn't very good, so we've sold him there to Miami FC, take him out of our salary cap, and get a little bit of money to add to our transfer budget, albeit not sure we need much more money added to our 17 million, especially as the board expects us to spend all that. Not too sure how we're going to do that with all our designated player spot already used up here at New York. That could be quite difficult, trying to spend 17 million to improve the squad, especially mid-season. You can see there, we've put in a bid for a centre-back. Now, we've actually been able to sign this guy on a pretty low-wage senior contract, 1.9k a week. James DeBio, hopefully he'll be joining us once his contract does expire there at Leeds United, on loan at Wigan. But he looks quite handy on quite a low wage, especially for a free. So James DeBio might be our first signing coming in here to the New York Red Bulls, albeit again, that won't actually be happening until early July once that contract does expire. But the reason that we have looked for an extra centre-back is because we have got a trade that might be going through with CF Montreal. Now, the KloppBot did agree to do this one, £75,000 of general allocation money, plus Cole Turner in return for a couple of first round draft picks there. In 2030, we get the one that was allocated to the Columbus Crew, and in 2031, the one that was allocated to CF Montreal. So we might be getting rid there of our third choice centre back here currently in Cole Turner. So that's the reason that we have decided to replace him with James DeBio once we go back here to the transfer history a little bit weird with all the different things here that you do have in the MLS. But you'd like to think that might be a little bit of an upgrade once we have a look at Cole Turner, once we find him right down there near the bottom. He's a handy player and is a local, but I think we might upgrade there with someone with a little bit more potential out of the English system. So hopefully that's a good first move here with the New York Red Bulls to strengthen our defence. Still are going to need, though, an extra centre-back as well as an actual right-back, especially with that issue that we've got with Nathan being injured and no other out-and-out right-backs. But we're about to play here Real Salt Lake in our second game. Top team there in the West. Their recent form, though, you could argue actually a little bit worse than the Houston Dynamo. So a bit of a weird situation going on here currently in the MLS. They did beat Dallas, but if we have a look at how they're doing, are in the Western Conference once we find them, just currently inside of a playoff spot. So actually doing a little bit better than us there over in the West. But to be fair, they're doing worse than Houston. So you'd expect the top team there to be beating them. But around that, they've suffered losses to Austin, Minnesota, Nashville, and our crosstown rivals, New York, who are joint on points with us here in the East. So hopefully we can find a way to match the result of our rivals in New York City. Their captain is David Strelk again. They've got a manager who likes a 4-2-3-1. He's Slovakian, 3-star reputation, so might be a quite decent player indeed with 3.5-star current ability and potential, albeit just like some of our players have been recently. Looks like he might currently be away on an international break. Indeed, that is the case. So he won't be featuring in this game. That might help us out there quite a bit. The vice captain is Justin Hack, who is an American, 3-star current ability and potential, a decent midfielder, but nothing too special, albeit compared to some of our players, he is quite handy. So a solid player there in midfield for Real Salt Lake, but their key player is an Argentinian in Anibal Moreno, a defensive midfielder who can also do a job centrally and a bit more further forward. Again, he looks quite well rounded and star rating wise does look quite handy at 4 stars. So I suppose we've got to respect him, but again, attribute-wise, he doesn't look like anything too special. But I suppose for the MLS, that might be quite a good player, a 30-year-old Argentinian who has spent some time at Newell's Old Boys and also at Palmeiras. So to be fair, has spent some time at some quite big clubs, is wanted by Utrecht as well. I believe those guys over in the Eredivisie. Indeed, that is the case. So to be fair, he might be quite a handy player that we're coming up against here in the second game. In today's episode, thankfully, we've got a couple of players coming back from international duty, albeit both of them are a little bit knackered. Carrasquilla comes back, heavy workload, so he's on the bench. And also Morgan, not quite on a full green heart. So both our first choice wingers still not quite available to start this game. So it does mean that Halsawi and Lael, they can keep their spots. And also, we have made another change. We've been forced into it because unfortunately one of our designated players, our first choice goalkeeper in Faber Frigerio, is away with the Colombian international team. So that means that we're missing our designated goalkeeper. So it does mean that stepping in for this game is Christian Pacheco. There he is, a homegrown club player, does have a bit of potential, but certainly not quite as good as Frigerio. So hopefully this guy can do a decent job despite the fact I'm a little bit concerned about that 19 eccentricity. Fingers crossed he doesn't make any blunders like some of our goalkeepers have at previous clubs here in this save, but hopefully can back up that first win with a decent result here against the top team in the West in Real Salt Lake. And a quick look at both team sheets here for the second game. In today's episode, there we are, just one change from that previous game in terms of the starting lineup. Pacheco comes in for Frigerio on international duty, but as I said, Carrasquilla and Morgan, they come back via the bench. They're Real Salt Lake. Their recent form not too great and are going with that 4-2-3-1 that we did beat in that previous game. Hopefully can find a way to get another good result here against the team from the West and inch our way a bit closer to a playoff spot. And it doesn't take long for the first highlight of this game, and unfortunately, it's in favour of Real Salt Lake. They got a corner here, they go near post, and that's a good chance there. Ground the rebound. I think that got cleared there by Farfan, still at right back. Looks like he might be having a better game than that first one already. Thankfully, the second corner, the goalkeeper comes up there with a good save, and Pacheco who also it looked like came out with a pretty good save from that first shot. So he's actually a decent start there. Here's the homegrown goalkeeper. Now we go down the other end. Looked like there we were on the attack, but unfortunately Renier there gets taken out and we can't quite keep that ball. But thankfully Alan there gets it back off the back of a clearance from the Real Salt Lake. It could be real because Americans do like to be different, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Real Salt Lake. But Lale here on the attack cuts inside, a good chance there, but their goalkeeper comes up with a decent save. So a good chance now for both teams. Unfortunately, New York City, they're beating St. Louis City, all cap city, because of course Americans, they like to be different. Unfortunately, a long range shot there, it goes well over the bar. So a highlight now for both teams, but it's still 0-0. And nothing's happened since that chance we did have there at the 15-minute mark. And before that, of course, Real Salt Lake with that early corner where thankfully Pacheco came up with a couple of decent saves, and also Farfan with a block there as a right back for us with that injury to Nathan. But it does mean in quite an even game so far. Overall, the shots you can see there, it's very even, but they're just getting a few more shots on target than us. But so far, no one out there having too much of a stinker. We'll definitely look at some stage during the second half to bring on both Morgan and Carrasquillo, but so far, fairly happy with how we're doing here against the best team in the West, locked up at 0-0. And we don't have to wait too long for the first highlight here of the second half, just 5 minutes into it, much like the first half. A free kick this time, but it's to Real Salt Lake. They play it back there to Perez. He plays the ball over the top. Thankfully, Vink will head that one away, but unfortunately, we don't get that ball back. And Gutierrez on the attack goes looking there for the top left corner, but thankfully, Pacheco comes up with a decent save. And this highlight hasn't ended. We'll see what this does amount to. Rolls out there to Glad, who plays it to Farfan. Unfortunately, a loose touch from him, though, and Real Salt Lake, they can get the ball back here and start to camp inside of our half. As I say that, they go back a bit. A tackle there, it actually goes back, though, to a Real Salt Lake player. Close to the goal, goes looking for the top right corner, but thankfully, that one goes high and wide, and we're still locked up at 0-0. And a few minutes off back of that first chance of the second half, I think it's time for us here to make some subs. Farfan's picked up a yellow card, so we'll take him off for Turner, and Glad again can go to right back. Olvera not doing too well again today. Precision can come on for him. And also, we might take off here Lale on a little bit of a deep yellow heart. Lewis Morgan, not quite a full green one, but let's see what our first choice therefore can do. Coming back from injury with about 40 minutes left, still 0-0. And going forward to the hour mark, and it's a free kick here to Dela Cruz, who of course scored the penalty in the first game. That one goes close, but unfortunately just misses the target, goes out for a goal kick. So still for us so far in this game, just not hitting the target as much as we'd like to. So I think here, going to bring on another of our regular first team players, Carrasquillo, back from that international duty that he just served, can come on for Halsall. We will encourage the boys with only 25 minutes left, but still locked up at 0-0. But hopefully now we're going to get some highlights with some better players on the field. A corner here in our favour. Renier plays that back out to Dela Cruz. Some good short passing. Morgan takes on the shot, but unfortunately that one also goes high and wide, and it's still 0-0. And now we go down the other end for a Salt Lake throw, and they play that one there to Moreno. We try and gang up on him, but unfortunately they do keep the ball there down their left-hand side. Diogo, he is now on the ball. Nice ball over the top there for Ordaz. A big chance in behind our defence, but thankfully doesn't test Pacheco, and it's still 0-0 with 20 minutes left. I'm trying to wrap things up here. The highlights continue. Thankfully, this one, though, might be in our favour. Got the ball here inside the final third off the back of that free kick that didn't quite hit the mark. We played in there for Paul in our midfield. Goes out there to Morgan, who was inside the box. He goes down there looking for a penalty. Unfortunately, not this time, but thankfully, get the ball back and are still camped here inside of their half. Vink plays that one there to Renier, one of our designated players back to Vink. They're apparently the best player in the MLS so far, though, having a little bit of an average game today on a 6.5. We float a ball in there for Precision, who's more suited as a target for. You can kind of see it there with the chance he got with his head, but unfortunately can't put that one on target. Now Renier drops down to a red heart. For this game, we put Robinson on the bench. Thought that might be a better idea with his higher potential than Jimenez. So we'll bring him on here for these last 15 minutes with our final sub. Still 0-0. And just making my way into the last 5 minutes of this game, and it's still 0-0 here, which wouldn't be a bad result against the best team in the West. But to be fair, I was kind of hopeful we might beat them off the back of that result that we did pick up over Houston. But to be fair, 4 points from our first 2 games, I'll take that all day, especially considering how good these teams did look in terms of the table first and second in the West. But I suppose 2 home games, you'd like to pick up points in your home games here in the MLS, but that was quite an even game. We had more shots, but they had more shots on target. So in terms of XG, a draw is probably a fair result, but 10 shots off target, that's pretty poor from us in front of goal. I definitely think we do want to improve in terms of a good first choice striking option. Whether we can with our salary cap, we'll see how that goes once I sort out the whole salary cap transfer thing here in the MLS, but certainly not a bad start to life here with the New York Red Bulls. Unfortunately though, we're still in 14th, but only 1 point off Charlotte FC in that last qualifying spot for the playoffs off the back of that 0-0 draw with Real Salt Lake. So a pretty decent start to life there with the New York Red Bulls. In today's episode, a win over the Houston Dynamo, even though the goal did come from the penalty spot and then a 0-0 draw with Real Salt Lake, the two best teams there over in the Western Conference. Hopefully, that's a sign that maybe when we take on some weaker opposition, we can pick up some good results here with this 4-3-3. Apparently glad he needs a rest, but considering our right back situation currently, I don't think that's going to be happening. Can't afford you to be missing any games. So I think that will do it for today's episode. A couple of trades and transfers that we have got in the works for when that window does open in just under a month's time, and of course pick up 4 points from our first 2 games. If you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll see what we come back for. Obviously, we might have some activity happening there around the start of July when we can sign those foreign players here in the MLS. The 2 games around that Minnesota and Cincinnati. Minnesota, that looks a bit interesting. They must be top there of the Eastern Conference. In fact, no, they've now gone top of the Western Conference. A bit of change off the back of those results that we picked up over Real Salt Lake and Houston, who have somehow dropped all the way down to 7th in those couple of games in today's episode. So Minnesota might be an interesting game to come back for, as I thought might be LAFC. They're usually quite a handy team in the MLS and currently find themselves 4th, again though, in the Western Conference. So to be fair, at the moment, looks like we're taking on a bit of a barrage of teams from the other conference. But I think that's what we're going to come back for in tomorrow's episode. And hopefully, by that stage, I might have got some decent transfers in the works, a few more bigger names than the one that we did start to get going during the course of today's episode in Dubai. I hopefully can find a way to sign some players on a bit of a higher wage, because we definitely should be able to do that. But unfortunately, couldn't do that yesterday for the right back that we were trying to sign. But if you have a look at the wages of some of our players on a senior contract, you should be able to sign them on 13k a week maybe. There's a way to play with gear money and all that sort of stuff, and also a way to reduce our salary cap, because I think at the moment that's a little bit of the problem here at the New York Red Bulls. Only got 13k spare, but hopefully we'll have some transfers and might have snuck our way a bit closer to one of those playoff qualifying spots by the time we come back for tomorrow's episode, those games against LAFC and Minnesota. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.